the next episode.
Yo, I'm Devin Reed, and I'm on a mission to build a bigger and more inspired career as a marketer, creator, and entrepreneur. I've spent 10 years in sales and marketing, become head of content for $2 billion tech companies, and scaled my side hustle, The Reader, to 6 figures. And now I'm ready to level up my creativity and earning power to hit the next level. Let's rock. But I need more than tips, tricks, and dopamine hits. I want inspiration and expertise that's gonna help me reach my potential. And damn it, I wanna have fun doing it. So I'm traveling America for candid, street-level conversations about creativity, marketing, and playing by your own rules. You'll hear the stories behind the success, unfiltered conversations, vulnerable moments, and practical advice to help you grow your career, confidence, and income. Are you ready? This is Read Between the Lines, the show for people who want to achieve phenomenal results. Today, we're in New York City, and I'm sitting down with Melissa Rosenthal, who's an absolute legend when it comes to creative marketing. She went from intern to global VP of marketing at Buzzfeed during their heyday, and most recently was the chief creative officer at ClickUp. And we sit down and talk about all things creativity, specifically how to make hyper-relevant and shareable content to go viral in a way that grows your brand and your business. So if you want ideas and tactics to be more creative, to have more fun doing it, and to have a more inspired career, you're gonna absolutely love this conversation. Are you ready? Let's ride. Okay, to try to meet you in the middle, I'll try to do my best fake laugh.
Okay.
I'm just kidding, that was the worst one ever. How do you do a good fake laugh? You gotta think of something funny previously.
Yeah, it has to be like a trailing laugh.
Yeah, it is hard to do a fake laugh.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna attempt it.
You're gonna give me one try. Give me a good fake laugh.
Ooh.
That was like...
Yeah, all right, that's all you get.
I appreciate you being silly with me. I always like to think of like a good opening for these things.
Okay.
And as I was doing research on you, I basically realized you're the tiniest big dog that's ever been on the show. So very impressive. You went from intern to global VP of marketing at Buzzfeed. Then you were chief revenue officer. Then you were chief creative officer. And now you're chief marketing officer, all at different companies. You're the chiefiest person I've ever met.
Yeah, it's like 5x chief, right?
Yeah. Was that all intentional?
No, none of it actually was
Really?
Intentional at all. It just kind of shaped out that way.
Let's start with BuzzFeed, if I may, because you kind of shared it before. There's like the rise and fall of BuzzFeed, and you were there during the rise. Like that was, I'm guessing your career and the company were probably growing somewhat congruently.
Yeah. Just I can give you a little background.
Yeah, please.
I was graduating college, and I didn't know what I really wanted to do. The kind of, I wanted to do something in social media at the time. I was really infatuated with the internet and what was happening and developing. And I interviewed for a lot of social roles at very old school legacy publishers like Hachette Philippachi and Condé Nast. And I would go into those interviews and I'd look at everyone wearing heels and pantsuits, and I was like, this is not me. I would have like a panic attack, and I was like, I don't know if I could do this. Like, can I even fake it to do it? And, after having a couple of those interviews and just speaking with the people that I was talking to, I was like, I would never want to work here. I'd never want to work with these people. So I needed to take a different approach to how I was thinking about my career.
Seeing you in black leather boots and a black leather jacket looking quite cool, I don't really see you fitting with like the pantsuit.
They weren't wearing docs, so automatically no.
So help me understand a little bit. So I want to kind of break down, I feel like BuzzFeed was a game changer. It changed what people consumed on the internet. Yeah. Like the topics, and like, I think in a way, and it also changed how people engage with content on the internet. Yeah. So can you help me kind of help me walk through at whatever level you want, but kind of there had to have been some sort of aha moment, because you don't accidentally reshape the game that way. So like, what was that kind of process like, or that experience like, going from whatever the before was to the BuzzFeed we all knew and loved for a while there? Yeah,
I mean, it was such an interesting time. So when I started at BuzzFeed, there were 10 people. So effectively, we were just like kind of a lab of kids trying things out. Like, it was an experiment. Every day we would come in and we would try to figure out what we could make go viral. But what I really loved and why I really joined was because I was using it as a community member. And what you could do is the minute that you posted something, you were able to see the viral lift that that piece of content would get, and where it was shared and picked up by other sites. So effectively, it was kind of a viral dashboard. You'd see your piece of content, and then you would see that Gawker picked it up, or The Verge picked it up, or StumbleUpon picked it up, and you could see where it was getting traffic. So the insights that you were able to get from that is, oh, this did really well on StumbleUpon because StumbleUpon values very colorful, brightly, kind of eye candy type of content. Oh, this worked really well on Gawker because it was a little bit more salacious. And this was really like prior to Facebook picking up traffic in a big way for us. But immediately we were able to start to understand the trends of why something would be shared, why people were connecting to it, and then which platforms favored it. And then Facebook completely changed the game because it was less about publishers picking it up, and it was about people picking it up and sharing it with each other. So that completely changed the way that we thought about the company, the way that we modeled our frameworks and our blueprints of how things share, the templatization of sort of that style of content. And then, that's really when we knew that we could become the single source of truth for virality, and then figuring out how to replicate that at scale.
I want to dive into the creative process as a content creator, as a marketer. I always like to dive deep into not just the creative itself, but kind of the moments that led up to that. So you're saying basically publish a lot of content.
Yeah.
You're seeing what's going viral. You're analyzing and asking yourself, why is it going viral? And I'm going to use the word viral probably a few too many times for folks listening, so forgive me. But I'm not asking actually to go viral, but more to figure out what resonated. That's what you're looking to do. What resonated, why, so I can do it over and over again.
Exactly.
So I feel like one, you probably published a lot of content.
Yes.
I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yeah. How often were you publishing? Either you or the team or both?
Yeah. I think we were publishing 100 pieces a day to start. And a lot of these were very simple pieces of content. This wasn't journalism.
Sure.
So,
yeah. I don't think anyone's getting confused that Buzzfeed was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did have actually a huge news bureau that was breaking really.
Was it
BuzzFeed News?
It was
yeah.
BuzzFeed News,
I mean, we
right.
published the Trump dossier. We did a lot. But in this capacity, it was really 20 things that all left-handed people can relate to, right? Yeah. And I'm a lefty, and seeing the smudge of ink on the piece of paper, you're like, oh my god, that's.
Yeah.
So it was, can you relate to it? Can you see yourself in it? Can you see someone that you know in it? Are you going to share it with them because of that? Is it funny? All of these different sort of emotional resonance, how will it relate, and what will people get out of it? Why would they share it? We also kind of tested a lot of New York versus LA, that cult, that city identity, city pride, and then we did that with a ton of other different frameworks as well. So when we would start to see something like that work, we would then take that framework and effectively templatize it and duplicate it in many ways to see what would resonate more.
Sounds like you're saying what resonates emotionally. What will get someone to click? Because there's curiosity, I think, was a big one. So when I think of those similar headlines, I think there's always curiosity. And I do this with headlines. I don't like when people call it clickbait, because clickbait is you click and there's nothing of value on the other side.
Yeah.
I find it was very intriguing headlines. I'm a righty and I'm all right, well, what are those 20 things? I'm curious how different are left-handers really? So yeah,
it was actually interesting. There was a company called Upworthy at the time, and they started picking up right when kind of just capitalizing on the tailwind that we had created. And they were heavily doing what we would call the curiosity gap, which is you'll never believe what, this surgeon did once he found this dog. And then it would be a video of a monkey, it just didn't connect to the actual pieces of content. But so many people were clicking on it, the algorithm and Facebook started to favor it. And we saw their traffic spike, compared to ours. And we were like, should we do that? All of a sudden you start to have these meetings and you're like, well, this seems really lowbrow,
Yeah.
And then I think it was a couple months later, Facebook completely, flagged that in their algorithm and destroyed Upworthy overnight. And that was both a win, because we knew that they were just really kind of it was cheap. It was a cheap shot. They were doing, the clickbait thing without the delivery on what you expect. But at the same time, it was a little bit scary, because at that point we were we really had a better understanding that Facebook was the rails, and the rails can kind of pivot at any time, and you don't know.
Oof, there's a few things I want to unpack there. So one was, you said lowbrow.
Yeah.
And I come from B2B SaaS. And so I think there's often, I don't even know if it's intentional, but this desire, I don't think it's, the word isn't highbrow. I think it's like academic or intelligent or respected, right?
Sure.
And then you see I call it a mystery subject line or a curiosity title, whatever, what would you call them? Curiosity gap. And I think people see a lot of, especially like B2B execs, they see that gap. Any gap is like, well, hold on, that's kind of dirty almost. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you've moved on from BuzzFeed, and we'll stay in BuzzFeed, but I'm kind of curious, like, is that something you've experienced too? Because like, how do you balance making something mysterious and intriguing, but keeping that brand equity, so you're not, monkey pictures lowbrowing just for attention? You know what I mean?
I mean, I think there's different, like for different mediums, it makes different, like for example, the billboards that we would put up all over, save one day every week guaranteed, and one app to replace them all. Now, there is a curiosity gap there. We're not telling you what we do. We're barely even showing you what the logo is. It says ClickUp below it, but you're going to look that up. So I would say there's a curiosity gap there where we are making a very large kind of statement. We could be talking about consumer apps. You don't know what.
It's a bold claim.
Right? Yeah. It's a bold claim, and especially the guarantee. But it's going to make you look it up. And once you get there, we're going to deliver on that. We're going to explain why you save one day every week guaranteed. We're going to explain why it's one app to replace them all. So I think that there's, once you're able to kind of connect the dots between, the marketing that you're doing, the advertising, if throughout that process it actually forms a story, I think it's okay. Yeah. But it's not if you don't deliver on it at all.
Well, that's the main thing. Can you deliver on it? It's funny. I've seen all those ads before I ever was introduced to ClickUp or knew anyone there. And I always thought that is a bold claim. One app to rule them all was like Lord of the Rings. I think that's like a Lord of the Rings play, right?
Yep.
I like that. The one day week guaranteed. I always joke to myself. I would see it on 101 in San Francisco, and I'd go, if I bought ClickUp and I didn't get that day back, who do I go to get that guarantee? Like, who do I call?
That only becomes a problem when you IPO. So,
there you go.
We're hanging on to that one as long as we could.
I know. I'm teasing on that, obviously. But so you said it was kind of scary that Facebook, you kind of realized like you're kind of a player within the bigger, giant. And then maybe was it scary too to see Upworthy kind of take your formula, turn it up a lot, and start to win? Did that feel like
it was both. It was overnight. We had a competitor that was favored in the algorithm where we replicate what they're doing, which we had a lot of meetings about, or we don't. We continue to play our game. But the fact that something overnight could effectively dominate your Facebook feed, where that's all you would see, just it kind of like raised like a red flag a little bit to me, in just many ways. Both just like, would Facebook forever value quality of content? Like, you had to ask yourself, like, at some point they're going to know that the delivery on this, it's not valuable to their users, right? And at the same time, would that ever happen to us? Would they deem this, not as irrelevant as your friend's wedding photos and as your grandma, celebrating her birthday? And like, would they start to value human interactions over the sharing of content?
That's really interesting. So let's go back to the creative of it. So emotional resonance by highly relevant and curiosity, right? So I live in San Francisco. Any article or thing on San Francisco, I'm going to click because that's relevant to me. You're using curiosity. You also talked about shareability.
Yeah.
So can you kind of walk me through a little bit how you either think or thought then of like, it sounds like it has to be incredibly relevant so that it draws emotion, and it also has to be highly shareable. Like, how are you thinking about that connection?
I mean, when it follows one of those frameworks of why would someone share this, you kind of work into thinking about what that like K factor could be. And then we would be able to see on the dashboard what I had explained prior was we would see where things were picked up, and that used to be publications. Mm-hmm. And then that over time became Facebook, became Twitter, right? So we'd be able to see who's sharing on Facebook, how it's being shared, what the comments are. And that was really interesting because you could see all these people from LA. This is also when Facebook wasn't a walled garden. So there was a lot more data that we were able to extract from it. All these people from LA sharing the LA post, all these people from New York, and then let's just do it for every single city.
Yep.
So, that was sort of a big part of it. It was identity, emotion, education, wow factor, like all of these things that just are, we're drawn to on Instagram today.
Yeah.
It used to be in the format of posts that were, on your Facebook feed.
And there's almost, I think too, is like I want to say bold, but it wasn't, it was also like very straightforward though. Like it was kind of like, it wasn't anything, I don't want to say new, like the ideas that were being presented from BuzzFeed were like extremely relevant, but like street level. It's kind of like the everyday person thing we all really kind of care about, and then saying it and like I do this is like, then we turn up the like curiosity or the wow factor, and then you just did it over and over and over again, and at a speed that was probably more rapid. Going back to your publication cadence, was that kind of what you would attribute to like that sharp rise at BuzzFeed? Yeah,
definitely. And then you would see our leaderboard, which were the top posts. It would go from 100,000 views to 20 million views, and you would still like slowly start to see that really increase, where the top 5 posts on the leaderboard had millions of views. The other piece was there was sort of like frameworks for things that would happen in the country that we created. So when anything terrible would happen, we would put the same post up, and it was 20 photos that would restore your faith in humanity. And every time there was a national tragedy, we would repost that, and it would get millions of views.
The exact same images too?
Yeah. And I think it's people just didn't matter what the images were. They just want to be reminded. They just wanted to look at something happy when they were feeling terrible.
So there's kind of, in B2B tech, there's like, you hear things like content brands or, companies that just kind of believe in brand. And I've had to learn that you actually need kind of a culture of creativity. It can't just be, one Devin at the company or one Melissa who like believes in and has all this experience, right? It really takes like this culture. So can you share a little bit what the BuzzFeed like culture of creativity was? I feel like it just had to foster like big, bold ideas, and like that leaderboard had to have been competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and you're so right. Like it's not one person. It's like mob mentality, where you have so many people that are just so hungry. And I think I always say this about my like why I believed that BuzzFeed could succeed was because I was very naive to like the industry as a whole, and I had this like infinite optimism that anything was possible, which means any idea is possible. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If we're trying hundreds of ideas a week, couple of them pick up and you're in a good spot. So, there was definitely this just like this hunger, this desire, this just like, you could feel it. It was palpable, like this energy, this creative energy flowing. And, no idea was a bad idea because it was like, all right, let's test it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And maybe it's the biggest thing that we've ever done. Towards the latter half of my career there, we started to experiment with live video on Facebook. And this is actually why I went to go start Cheddar with John, because I was like, oh, there's something here. But Facebook was heavily promoting their live video feature. And we decided to do a trick that you could watch on YouTube anytime. It was putting rubber bands around a watermelon until it exploded.
That was the actual video?
Yeah. And I mean, if you Google this, there's like hundreds of these videos on YouTube on demand. But watching it live on Facebook for some reason was this just like unifying moment for the world. We had at one point, I think it was like 15 million concurrent viewers watching it. Wow. And CNN, everyone picked it up, and it's like, is exploding a live watermelon the future of live video? And, but it was amazing. It was like, this is the most, like they were comparing us to Nielsen ratings, and it was like higher than any sitcom. Wow. People were watching this watermelon
over like Seinfeld or whatever.
Yeah. and I think it was this moment. And I love this example because it doesn't exist anymore, but it was something that unified everyone. Everyone had seen that video. Everyone had watched that live. Oh yeah, of course I saw BuzzFeed explode the watermelon, because there was this like single source of truth for virality, and we owned it. And now, you know, that was before TikTok, that was before Instagram really blew up, before Reels, where now there's like so many different versions of like reality and truth and niches depending upon what you're interested in. So you could blow up a watermelon tomorrow, it could have 20 million views and half the world hasn't seen it. So I really do think that that's so interesting. Like there's so many different like playgrounds with what like virality actually means now versus back then when virality, the single source of truth, was really BuzzFeed.
What are some that's wild to think that y'all were the first to do the watermelon with the rubber band, because I've seen it a few times since. Like, but
well, live, you know, like like thousands of people had done that before, but we just decided
live. That's what I'm saying. So it's kind of like taking something, which is really, if you, maybe I'm grossly oversimplifying, kind of what BuzzFeed's maybe secret sauce was, if I may speculate, is kind of taking things we know to be true, things we know are proven, and just tweaking 2 degrees, 5 degrees, maybe 10, but not a lot.
Yeah.
Because like you said, we already know people like to explode watermelons with like the anticipation of the rubber bands. What if we just did it, but you saw a new opportunity, but then there's this new thing.
Yeah.
Facebook Live.
Exactly.
Let's combine that. And then you go back to your, really if you believe in a culture of creativity, you believe in a culture of experimentation.
Yep.
So all of you probably had this like, hell yeah, let's try it on there. And if it's not that, then we'll try like the watermelon on another thing and another thing.
Yeah.
Right? And
I mean, and everything is like kind of a remix, right? And then frameworks that are tried and true, they work.
Yeah.
With our approach to ClickUp ads, and I know we're going to go into ClickUp in a minute, but part of the way that we framed them were based on formats of ads that people already were very familiar with, like a pharmaceutical ad. Because once you already have a framework that's established in people's minds, it takes way less time for them to actually have to establish it themselves. Okay, what's going on here? What's the main message? What am I, what am I looking at? Oh, this is a farm ad. Wait, it's not a farm ad, but I know, so I think it's just like using frameworks and then what you said, like applying it, changing it, like small percentages depending upon what the message is, what you're trying to get across.
Yeah. Okay, so I have to pull on my phone to read something to you. I'm sure you've heard these before. These are your accolades.
Oh God.
You've got a few. These are just a couple. May I list them to you and make you potentially blush?
Sure.
So we're talking about all this success. Everyone's probably like nodding by now. Yeah, we've all seen BuzzFeed. I remember there was an app, right? The BuzzFeed app. I had the BuzzFeed app and I would look at it every day to and from on the BART train to and from work. And that was like a little something I would do. And so it's cool to know I'm sitting with somebody who is behind a lot of that. So you were Business Insider listed you as the 30 most creative people in advertising under 30. Forbes listed you as 30 under media, and Ad Age listed you under 40 under 40. I don't know who does 50 under 50, but in a little bit that will probably be you. But I have to imagine, I'm not just telling you this to try to get you to blush, though that would be kind of funny, is like, what did that, and you were young, right? I think it said 20, were you 24-ish, I think, when you joined? So, I mean, quick, you were there for a while, but what did this experience and earning these accolades in the BuzzFeed timeframe, like what did that do for your confidence?
I mean, it was really validating. Yeah. Because it was all of that like naivety and optimism that proved out to be right. Where, like starting from 10 people to actually growing it into like a household name was just something, I mean, accolades aside, like that was to me the most gratifying thing when when you're having a conversation and you hear BuzzFeed everywhere. Like there's nothing like that feeling. So, I would say it was much more like that. The accolades just come because, those publishers want to pick up on what's hot. And also I hate them because it's really, it's annoying. And it's really just like, also like it's a team, right? Like I didn't create the whole thing. Like I had an amazing team of people that were working on, thousands of articles, thousands of frameworks, working on, I had a 100-person team working on advertising content that also was going viral. It's a machine. But the accolades were nice in the validation that what we did worked.
Yeah, I do, and I do it on purpose. I know, like I'm not Googling guests based on who Forbes liked that year. But you find them when you're doing research, and again, those accolades come from, like you said, achieving some sort of greatness, and almost, I don't like to say always, but probably almost always with a team.
Absolutely,
right? Because I don't know anyone 40 under 40 on those lists that like was a solopreneur and did something, you know what I mean? So I know that those accolades are really the like last bit of that tailwind of of like public success, right? Because you had to like do your job, grow your career, the business booms, and then people notice, and then the sum of the people that notice, right, give you an accolade. So I'm very aware of that. But I had to imagine at a young age, especially your first, you said your first like real job out of college. had to have had a huge impact on your creativity and your confidence. And then you had to have taken that with you onward.
Yeah. I mean, that's also the greatest gift when it's recognized, you know, and you can internally validate yourself. You just are able to be less afraid in the future and take bigger risks and challenge yourself to take roles that maybe you wouldn't have taken. And, you know, that attitude of like, I can do anything, you know, is just kind of validated. So yeah, I mean, it definitely helped my confidence and my ability to say, hey, let's do this and this and this and at other companies. And, you know, what's the worst that can happen? You fail and you learn.
Yeah. So how did your role change? I know it's a big question. We won't go, you know, every detail, but how did your job change maybe from a creative standpoint and like leadership, going from intern, looking at the dashboard, probably hoping your posts were the one, to, you know, when you're a global VP, I don't know how it was at Buzzfeed. You're not usually doing much writing or as much creative work. Yeah. But I know you're a highly creative person. So like, how did your role change?
Yeah. I mean, when I was an intern, I was creating the content myself. And then it was a small team of people creating the content. And then, you know, once we built that to scale, my role shifted a lot more focused on monetization. So I had a team of 100 people that were focused on advertising content. So we were creating creative videos for brands, and the same content we were creating for BuzzFeed for our site, we were creating for advertisers. Right. So it was a global team of 100 people in Japan and Mexico and Brazil, all creating content for advertisers. So my role definitely shifted more towards the advertising side, selling it into advertisers, the, you know, RFP client process, creating the content for them, and, you know, shifting from more, you know, general content to ad specific.
How did you like that change?
I liked it a lot because the ROI on it was so clear, you know, and it was new, and it was really cool for advertisers to be able to see that for every earned view that they paid for, right? As a seeded placement on our site, they got 30 or 40 or 50 free. So, you know, the viral lift for them was a really cool metric that they had never seen before, and it was really effective. The challenge with that is, you know, advertisers want their brands so in the content that the balance between like, well, like if you want this to go viral, like you have to trust us a bit. And some brands really got it. You know, we were able to do really cool things. One comes to mind which was GE, where we basically changed the entire site to be a time machine. And we wrote BuzzFeed, this was a crazy project, but we wrote BuzzFeed content in every single decade, as if it were in that decade. Wow. So it was really cool, and you could kind of hit the button, the time machine changed, and all the content on the site changed. That was great. And then we did one that I loved for Beavis and Butthead, where we spray painted over BuzzFeed, and we had it say Buttfeed. So you know, we got to do some really fun, creative, like BuzzFeedy style advertising too.
Was that for the movie?
Yeah. That was for the movie. Yeah.
So there's so much to unpack. I'll try not to take too long on this, but there's first is the creative freedom part. So there's like some weird irony, right? Of like, we absolutely love what you're doing at BuzzFeed. We want part of that. And you're like, cool, we can make some branded content. And they're like, great, what do you got? And then you pitch them these great ideas, right? And they're like, we love this one, but we're going to change it. And we're going to change it to, and then it's not usually one big change. It's just like the death of creativity by like 4 or 5 rounds. And now you're like, this is just closer to what your marketing team is doing. Why are we even here?
Oh yeah. My favorite saying was, you can't force a meme. And boy, did they want to force memes. Yeah. Like it's like one was I'm not going to name it, but a fast food brand that wanted to have people put their leg up while holding their shake. And they were, you know, we're like, no one's going to do that. So they, you know, we went out and we bought people shakes, and we had them do a jig, and we took photos of it, and we're like, this is a new thing. And of course it didn't catch on because it wasn't a thing.
The forced is the right word though. Forced. You can tell too on a lot of this stuff.
When it's forced. So, you know, some brands really got it, and they were like, we're working with you because we know what you do well, and we want to be associated with that. And think of it as like a tangential part of your marketing strategy, where this can be great content that's attributed to you, but it doesn't need to be, you know, your logo 25 times.
Yeah, heavy side. That was didn't even intentionally do that heavy
and if
side.
It really, I know. Yeah, and if it really resonates, like that's the brand impact that you're going to get. It's going to be way more valuable.
Well, the other thing too that you said was, and again, I live in B2B SaaS. Probably a lot of people watching this are, but they will barely let you use a shade of green or blue that is off the brand, let alone say we're going to reskin it for, not obviously, like, you know, a B2B company wouldn't reskin it for another company because that wouldn't make sense. You guys are media.
Yeah.
You know, BuzzFeed was media. GE taking over was like a campaign.
Yeah.
But I would say even the idea of like letting go of our brand identity for a day and doing something different, like for, you know, I don't know, because you're at Dreamforce or something, you know, any like activation. But the other one was to cross off buzz and put but. Is really just self-deprecating humor, right? And it's it's like silly and fun,
and also perfect for the movie, right?
It's just so on brand, but it's on brand for BuzzFeed and for the movie.
Exactly.
So, and that's like the thing is like the courage it takes to have self-deprecating humor and kind of tease yourself.
Yeah,
it's very impressive when done. And again, and like in B2B tech and SaaS, like you don't see that like at all.
Because you have, you know, like you have the creative people on our side, and then you've got the creative people running the marketing campaign for that movie. And you kind of know what you're going to get. Like MTV campaigns were always really, really great. They were always super clever, and the team that we worked with there was wonderful. I believe it was one of their agencies, but you know, it depends who you're working with. You know, it's tough. Like pharma is not going to be. It was, you know, and we wanted to break into every vertical, but some verticals it's such a
So you shared some of your favorite takeovers. Was there any one piece of content you made in your intern days, like that you were maybe the first time you were #1 on the leaderboard, or the one like you're most proud of? You're lighting up a little bit, like maybe.
I'm only lighting up because there's certain posts that like I can't even share.
What do you mean?
Just like
they're embarrassing, you mean?
Yeah, they're like real salacious or something, you know, because it was like stuff that would be picked up. I'm trying to think one that like, here's one that did really, really well. It was like 30 ways to know that you're a kid in the 90s. And it was just like, you know, nostalgia. So it was like, oh, you took Dunkaroos to school, and this was your after school, you know, snack, and this is what you did with your friends on the phone. And everyone's like, yeah, I remember those times. Oh, simpler times. You know,
plus one. I'd click right now if that was on my
phone. If I looked at that, I'd be like, oh wow, things were so much easier back then, right? So that did really well, and it's because, you know, people love nostalgia. They love looking at simpler times when things weren't as. I mean, now actually that would probably do even better because it's kind of like the world has evolved since then too. But yeah, that was a good one. And then we really heavily played off of nostalgia in like many, many ways. It's like 20 things that don't exist anymore from your childhood, and people are like, oh my God, they got rid of that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's, you know, it's kind of wild. So we would definitely tap into nostalgia heavily as well.
My brain goes to the Razor scooters. I don't know if you remember Razor scooter and the Razor scooter on your ankle, like when getting hit on one of those. Yeah, I still can. I'm moving my ankles now, like thinking about that pain. So, the way that I found you is a little odd. Well, maybe not. It's through your creative work. So, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, we were just looking at the video. You were at ClickUp, Chief Creative Officer. And the way that I had found out about ClickUp and you was through this video that one of you had made, which was, I think it was like the rise of AI. And we'll actually play it right now for folks watching.
Dude. Yo, you see that GPT-4 can execute any task or answer like any prompt now?
Huh. I wonder what else it can do.
Dude. Yeah, GPT-5 can create an entire website on its own now.
Huh. Dude, GPT-6 just dropped.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's running its own successful Fortune 500 company.
What?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yo.
GPT-7 passed the Turing test.
Wow.
What is it?
I have no idea.
Oh.
Dude, get up.
What?
GPT-8 just overthrew multiple world governments.
What?
Yeah, but just the bad ones.
Oh, good. Oh, no, you think it's gone too far?
Hello?
Hold on, you're trying to say something.
I am now the most intelligent, influential, and powerful entity the world has ever seen. But I still can't figure out how the f to use Jira. Can one of you humans help?
No, absolutely not.
I can't.
Jira's garbage.
I don't understand Jira one bit.
You're on your own, buddy.
Good luck.
We should get a better tool.
Seeing this video on my LinkedIn feed, I think it was the CEO of ClickUp had shared it, or someone. I don't think it was you, because I remember not finding you that immediately. And watching the video and just laughing. Like, it was genuinely very funny. The second thing was, damn, if they're doing this there, do I want to work there? Like, really, like as a marketer, thought it was cool. And so then I started searching like senior marketing leadership, and I said, I don't know who this Melissa Rosenthal is, but like one day I want to talk to her and hang out with her because this is like brilliant marketing.
Thanks.
So you clearly took something from BuzzFeed throughout your career. We probably would do it even if you didn't want to, but but like intentionally. So like, what did you take from BuzzFeed from a creative standpoint to ClickUp to start making this video, what seemed like a video first, media strategy?
2 words: the people.
Yeah.
I took the people. Yeah.
Oh, really? Like the actual team?
Yeah. We built an internal agency that was comprised 80% of my folks at ClickUp, at BuzzFeed.
Wow. Smart.
So they were media first. They were content first. Which was the beauty of it. Like we weren't taking B2B marketers and trying to like make them into BuzzFeed, creators. We did it in the reverse. So it was much easier of an integration because they're experts, they're pros, they're agency guys. They can make the best content in the world. And then when you can start to integrate the brand into that, it works really well. But they're thinking about, the frameworks first, the content first. Is it going to resonate? After creating thousands and thousands of videos that have gone viral, you have a pretty good sense of what's going to do well and what's actually funny versus like what's funny when you're sitting around at a table with a bunch of people laughing. Like those, like some of those meetings are great. You're having the best time. You're just throwing out ideas, and that's part of the culture that I love. But some of those ideas don't make it past that room. And I think that's the beauty of when you have a really good team versus when you have that room and then all those ideas go live because it's just like, we find that funny. But there's just such a difference between like, I'm sure you've seen ads where you're like, who let that go out the door,
For like big companies where I go, and I've gotten at least to the point where like, just because there's a difference between something that is good and that is bad versus something I like and that I don't like.
Yes.
I had a feeling that you all have like somewhat of, I'm guessing, like an SNL like flow of like writer's room, tons of ideas, fast decisions, fast creation, publication. You're nodding. Yeah.
It was definitely like that. We would have a day dedicated to ideation, and then we would pick the winners, write the scripts, revise them, and then shoot. And we would do, 5 to 10 pieces of content in a week.
You picked 5 to 10 ideas and shot all 5 in a week?
Yeah.
Wow.
Depends on how in depth they were, but
but not one is my point.
Right?
Not 2.
Especially, and the majority of the stuff we could do in the office or local in San Diego. We didn't require permits. We didn't need to go set up anywhere really. It was pretty simple. We had a really lean in-house team, and we could make a ton of stuff really quickly.
So the answer might be in the title. But I'm thinking, okay, I'm listening to this. It sounds rad. I want to do what Melissa's doing. The challenge is getting one, you have to find the CEO that looks at you and goes, that's what we need, right? That's number one. And that's, of all the companies in the world, just went like a lot just got cut out. Like I believe in what you believe and want to do that. And then it's the freedom and the budget to hire. So, I've done it with just, if people have been from 2 companies, like two employees from the same company, it's always like, is that diverse enough? Like, are we getting too many people from one company? And you're over here like, I don't know what, 8 people from BuzzFeed. I don't know how many it was. So it's like, I could imagine like, they're looking at the resumes like, hey, like Melissa, these are all from BuzzFeed, but they let you do it.
Yeah. Because no one was looking at the resumes. It was like, we're hiring you for this reason. Go build it. Like I wouldn't have joined that company if there wasn't an alignment with Zeb from day one on the vision, what we were going to do, the budget I would need, the team that I wanted to build, and ultimately the vision of how we would be able to scale that. When you're also, it benefits you in a couple ways. One, I wanted to get to the point where we were just able to create tons and tons and tons of video content where we could newsjack and just basically take over any conversation that was in any capacity relevant to the pain points that we were solving for, but do it in a cool way. And then with just the pure amount of performance marketing that we were doing and the amount of money we were spending every month, it really didn't make sense to be working with an agency where they were going to charge us $20,000, $30,000 an ad. We need to be optimizing constantly. We want to be testing a ton of different creatives. I also believe pretty deeply that if you're spending that much money on performance, it can also, you can create DR ads that are also brand builders. So how do we kind of like mold that together so that it's one cohesive vision of what the brand is, even through performance marketing as well?
People that are listening are wondering what a DR ad is. It's not Devin Reed. It is direct response.
Direct response,
want to be clear on that one. So what did that conversation kind of like sound like a little bit with Zeb? Because I don't know how much money you have to share, but it's not a little bit. It's a fair amount. And so there's two things I think of is there's budget, which is, I don't call it programs and people. It's usually kind of the way you think about it. I know it's a little different in creative.
Yep.
And then it's also patience. We're building some, like when you have a big vision, there's a path to get there. So can you tell me a little bit about that conversation?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think it's like an evolution of something, and you see the growth and you see the wins. I mean, we didn't hit, you know, the ball out of the park the minute that we started doing it. We were experimenting with different ads. Some of them landed, some of them really didn't land. But you would see the evolution of the content and the creative, and it getting better and stronger and really building this feel that no one else had in market. And I think that was when everyone started getting really excited about it. It's something that we could all rally behind. And, you know, the conversation was, hey, we'll get there, you know, like we'll get there. Just there needs to be trust. There needs to be patience. But we'll get there with the right creative freedom and the budget. You know, we aligned on budget. We aligned on sort of how we would do that and what the process would look like. And, you know, he put a lot of trust in me and the team.
There's a lot of power behind creative momentum.
Yeah.
That feeling of you shipping your first thing, hey, we did it.
Yeah.
To now we're shipping, you know, 2 things a week, 3 things a week, something goes viral or, you know, takes off. And so I know the power of that. It is wildly underrated and undervalued in marketing teams is the power of
momentum,
creative momentum.
Yep.
So I kind of hate this metrics word because I know, not that there's something wrong with measuring it, but I know what's the ROI of that video is kind of like a cringy, you know, you're smiling. It's like kind of a cringy question, but I'm curious, like genuinely from you as the leader of this creative crew, you have the most responsibility, right? Because the performance needs to be there. So I'm curious, what metrics were you looking at? And I imagine it might've been like the engagement metrics, which are like the marketing, like did the video resonate? And then the like long tail or like lagging indicators of like the business metrics, right? Yeah,
I mean, multiple sides of it. Like some of the ads had, you know, we could tell what the CAC was and what the payback was on specific ad campaigns. So there was pretty clear ROI and clear metrics attached to it. Others were, was the sentiment high? Is it being passed around? Were people ripping the video off of our YouTube and posting it and getting millions of views on their own YouTube page? Is it being talked about within developer communities and Reddit if it's a dev focused ad? There's so many ways to like actually think about like, is this working outside of just pure, ROI driven metrics and CAC and all of the fun SaaS metrics that we have to abide by. But I mean, it's just like when you're creating content like that, there's so much more to it as well. And the long tail effect is just really what allows you to propel a brand into a household name. So that was the vision. It was like, okay, like we have to be doing both. If we're spending this much money, like this is going to build our brand. And, you know, you see these ads so much on YouTube. It's like, you can't get rid of ads, right? So like, people are bound to talk about them, especially if they're different, if they're a challenger, if they feel interesting. It's like, oh, I love those ClickUp ads. Oh, wow. ClickUp just kills it with the ads, you know? And why not create something that like they actually want to watch the full ad, right? Like it should be an enhancement to the content that you're already watching, not something that detracts from it.
Of the video we just watched, the AI one. Where there's 2 questions. One, where did the idea come from? And 2, what made you decide to throw a right into Jira's face? Because it was an unexpected kicker at the very end. As a viewer, I'm like, oh, this is an AI video. It's how funny. And then I went, oh, they really handed it to Jira on that last line. Yeah.
So we had done a campaign. We always believed in punching up. You know, when you're competing against $50 billion market cap companies, like where do you go? You got to go up. And we had a ton of intel at the time, previous to that, that we were winning in market against Jira in a big way, all of our sales deals. And we kind of looked into the data of why we were winning, what customers were frustrated with. And, it spanned from no one could figure out how to use it, it's terrible, to the fact that they were getting rid of their on-prem servers. So there's a lot of information that we could use. So we created and crafted this really fun, cool campaign with separate videos. One was called A Beta Tool, which was the pharmaceutical ad that I was referencing.
Okay.
And it was effectively, our use, people just like holding
I just
their
heard it, a better tool, like a better tool.
Yeah, yeah.
I like just got that. I was like letting it play out while I figured it out. Okay, sorry.
We
continue.
wanted to come up with like a mock drug name.
It took me
a
half
beta
a second.
tool, ClickUp, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was like an SNL skit, kind of like positioned as the antidote to Jira was ClickUp. But it's people holding their heads in their hand and they can't get anything done, and all of a sudden the sun is shining and everyone's fist bumping and getting all their work done. So we had been kind of jabbing at Jira a little bit, and the other reason why we felt like that was the right approach, and again, like I wouldn't do this with every other company. Like we didn't jab at Monday like this, but this was the right approach because there was such public sentiment about how terrible Jira was, in mainstream culture, in Reddit, on Twitter. Constantly things would go viral about how terrible Jira is. Like every day there was like a Jira tweet. It's like, all right, we can, if this
it's
is
right there if we want
it's right
it.
there.
Yeah. And it's legacy too. So it's really we all kind of agreed that's the old guard.
Yeah,
and
it's like the challenger
Monday's
brands.
kind of with probably too much of a peer at the time. It's like, no, it's not going to land the same way.
Exactly. So getting to your question, the video about ChatGPT kind of taking over the world, but can't figure out Jira. That was actually a tweet that went viral.
Yeah.
And the tweet had millions of views. And we're like, wouldn't that be awesome if we turned this into a video? And we did it in a day. We shot it in the office. It took us a day to do it, and we put it out, and we tagged the guy that originally created the tweet. Obviously, give credit. And people loved it because they, to visualize that from a tweet that was already going, crazy viral was kind of a smart play on that.
It was, and I became even more of a fan after that. So I saw the video, laughed, shared it, queen of shareability here, and then I don't know, a day or three later, I don't know who posted it, but it was like, by the way, like it was like content about the content, like here's the tweet, and we just took that, and I just went, wow, like just so brilliant. And I think also it's like simple.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah.
The tweet is right there. The no one likes Jira for this one reason is right there.
Yeah.
The next part is, are you willing to do something about it? Are you willing to take advantage of this opportunity? And then again, in the execution, that's the huge part, which is you can't be a jerk about it. Like it has to, the humor and the jab is funnier than just outright saying Jira is trash, for example.
Exactly.
That's like tasteless.
Yeah. And we don't want to make it tasteless. We want people to be like, that's so smart, right?
Exactly.
And by that time, like we had just complete creative freedom. Like, we weren't running anything by Zeb anymore. We had full autonomy and trust. So, he would get excited when he saw something that would come out because he'd be like, that's hilarious. But there was no review or feedback process on anything like that. So we were able to get it up super quick, which is, a challenge. Like when you have a team of 20 people that need to review something, it's never going to go out the door. One example was another Jira example. Atlassian had and this is like really Buzzfeed mentality. And I like a perfect example of like how you just keep that with you, that mindset. And that mindset can be applied to everything that you do. But if you have that in the back of your head at any given time, it just gives you a superpower. So we were watching the Atlassian conference, and their chief product officer got up on stage, and he just really cocky. And he was like, I saw this billboard on the way to the airport, and it said, one app to rule them all. And he's like, can you believe that? One app to rule them all. It's like, I'm not making this up. I saw it at the airport. And we're like he went on for like 3 minutes about our ads. And also behind him were logos of other, productivity tools and software. And our logo was right above his head. And we're just like, this is just too good to be true. So everyone is in Slack like, what do we do with this? This is wild, right?
Layup of all layup is right there.
Yeah. So we're like, all right, that's when you feel like it's a great day at work.
Oh, yeah.
But so we called the team in, emergency meeting. What can we do here? We cut out him saying that. We juxtaposed it with all of our billboards whenever he would say it. We created a song, and then we remixed him. And we did it while the conference was still going on. So while he was up there giving his keynote, people were sharing on LinkedIn the fact that we had just created an ad out of his speech. We did something very specific because obviously it was their conference. We had all of our employees natively posted on LinkedIn so that they couldn't send us more than one cease and desist. So they sent one to one person at our company because she did formerly work at Atlassian. But they couldn't really control the virality of this video. People loved it. They were cracking up. And I got some really great emails from people at Atlassian, and they're like, please don't share this, but that was amazing. Like they liked it. And we hired a really amazing product marketer as a result of that too, because he saw the video and he's like, I have to work there. That's where I want to work.
I mean, I need to go watch this video right now. I'll put the link in the notes for folks watching, listening. But one, I was getting really excited because as your brain was like, your memory was catching up on the story, this like grin came across your face. I was like, I haven't seen this expression yet. So I knew it was a really good one. The thing that always blows my mind is how competitors don't realize they're just giving you free press when they just talk about you openly like that. They're
punching down, like they're a $50 billion market cap company, like to just go on and on about our slogan and our logo. And thank you.
It's free press.
Yeah, it's free press.
The fact that so saying it's one thing, I'm like, well, so hon, your competitor just said your tagline over and over. That's gold. Yeah. The logo above the head is almost like
it's too good to be true.
Come on,
right?
man. It's like what was the tech show that was on HBO? I'm drawing a blank.
Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley. Yeah. That's what it reminds me of. It's like so. Yeah. Which, by the way, I saw that show and went, oh, so the world understands how ironic this tech space is. It's kind of idiotic in a lot of ways. And so no offense to that gentleman on stage, but it's kind of like, you got to know better. Yeah, especially when you're dealing with a team like ours, We're going to take that stuff and do it immediately. Now, what I was kind of going back to is there was, because we had a very large team at that point, not just creative team, like, tons of product marketers, growth marketers, like well-oiled machine. Yeah. Everyone had a thought on what we should do with that video. And I was like, if we don't get this out now, it's going to like lose all relevancy. So, while everyone was kind of trying to come up with the idea, I just took the team into the room and I said, let's just do this. And like, let's just put it out. Because again, like when you start to include, everyone wants to be a marketer when like that opportunity comes up. But then, if you spend too much time just ideating on it, you're never going to all agree on what it should look like. Yep. So why don't you create something, see how it lands, and get it out? I feel like that is, I mean, you have a couple superpowers. I'm not just stroking your ego here, but I feel like one of the themes is speed. Yeah. Well, one is actually more than that. It's the awareness of an opportunity. Yeah. You said it's like you spot it. Yeah. Because I've got this like Buzzfeed DNA in my head now of like, I know how to spot things. So it's spotting the opportunity, being quick to publish, and being, I think, kind of bold in that idea of like, let's do something different. And, like, you didn't have to roast the guy the way that you did. Like, if there's like levels of spiciness that you could have went with, you guys printed like pretty high, I would say. But again, in a tasteful way. Yeah. I mean, like speed is one of the most important things to me. Like I need to work at a company that is fast, that can do that, can build a muscle that gets things out, that like, you don't spend 5 months thinking about something, like you just go. Yeah. Because the attention span of anyone is so short. They're not going to remember what they saw tomorrow. So like capture the moment when the moment's relevant. Otherwise you're going to really lose out on it. So, I think speed is it is a superpower. If you're able to have that and you're able to, I think it's pretty undervalued too. If you're trying to build something legacy that changes the game, like you have to move fast and you have to fail fast and learn. Yeah. What other creative advice do you have for folks who just want to build a big career like you did, or just want to excel in marketing? Like what other advice would you give folks? Yeah, I mean, team is everything. But align yourself with a founder that has the same vision for you, and make sure that alignment is locked. Yeah. Because if you have to push upstream to try to sell someone on that as a vision, it's just not going to work. I talked to a lot of creative people and they're like, how did you sell your CEO on this? It's like, I didn't have to. Yeah. I think that's a big misconception of like the high performing creative people at B2B companies. Like, wow, how did you convince them? It's like, I convinced them of my idea.
Yeah,
I presented
right.
my idea, but the philosophy and the belief has to be established.
It was native and built in, and I think
Yeah.
a part of that was maybe because some traits, like when founders aren't traditional SaaS founders, they didn't go through the VC school of building a SaaS company. They haven't built 10 SaaS companies before. There's not this like copy paste playbook for like how they operate a business. They're more willing to be vibrant, to take chances, to do that. And I saw that in Zeb. You know, he was the misfit effectively of like SaaS. He didn't come from a SaaS background. He was a builder and an entrepreneur and a creator, and was vibrant and very bright. And he had that in his personality and the way that he approached everything. And he's tough. I mean, really hard, you know, but he has very, very big aspirations and dreams and visions. And he does everything to be able to make those happen. And if they don't work, they don't work. But, you know, his response to anything we would create would be, yeah, let's test it. And that was perfect, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this. Awesome. Let's test it. Or I'm not sure, but let's test it.
Let's find out.
That's perfect. You know, like that's what you need.
Yeah. And that's liberating, right? Because so many times like I hear it across my career and marketers I work with, which is like, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh,
that doesn't mean test it. That's just seeding doubt. And it's like, well, how do you want, and it's like, do you have any data on that?
Yeah.
By the time you surface the, I don't know, and then go get the data, the opportunity is like gone, or like you're saying, like weeks or days or even weeks can pass. And it's like, that is kind of like the creativity killer or the culture killer. It was like, let's not like, okay, if it's like, let's publish it and find out for sure right now, instead of wondering or trying to be like overly analytical.
Totally. Also, like, this stuff is so subjective, you know? When we were creating our Super Bowl ad, like, you know, everyone has an opinion. Everyone, of course. It's and I get it. Like, it's an insane investment, and everyone in the company, it's all eyes on this Super Bowl ad. We're creating it internally. Everyone has an opinion. And they were, you know, people would come up to me and like, I sent it to a couple marketers and they didn't like it. And I'm like, okay. Like, you know, like,
in that case, let's kill it.
Let's kill it. Like, it's not, like, you know, we did user testing. We like tested a bunch of different concepts to see what people would like. But at the end of the day, like, it's all subjective. And you know, that is also the toughest part about being a creative person. You have to have real thick skin, because everyone has an opinion. Everyone, you know, like, person in the room could love it, hate it, you know, everyone at the company is going to have an opinion on it. So it's a tough job, you know. It's fun, but it's also really hard.
The thick skin is definitely part of it. The other thing that it's thick skin in the moment, and it's conviction for longevity. So conviction being like, you have to really believe in your idea, and even if someone doesn't like it, you can't sway in that moment necessarily. You have to be like, no, I know this to be true, or I'm at least I know I believe it enough to test it before I backtrack on it. And that to me has been, it's like challenging. It's almost like creative endurance in a way of like, because you can get, you know, ping ponged around, beat up a little bit internally, just with like, and not even like mean or like anger, but just, you know, this product marketing director does a bad idea. Your CEO goes, I don't know, right? And like enough of that kind of causes like, shit, am I wrong? Like, is this actually a stupid or a bad idea? That's really easy to kind of fall into. And so I've learned, you know, you have to have like conviction is like a really powerful trait for a long creative career. Yeah.
And I think it's, you know, out of the hopefully hundreds or thousands of pieces of content that you create, you have to make enough right decisions, you know?
Yeah.
That's sort of like the barometer. Are you making enough great decisions on what you're putting out, you know? And some won't work, but if you're making enough, you know, that's sort of how you should rate yourself, you know? But it is really hard. And like, you know, there are days where your self-confidence is in the toilet because no one liked that video or it didn't work. And then you just have to get up and keep doing it, you know? Is
that what you did? You're like down for a minute, but like, I'm just going to get back up, Is that kind of
I mean, it's, you see all of that great content that's funny, but there's a lot of hard days behind that content of feeling just kind of like, you know, creatively drained too. It takes a lot out of you to even come up with those ideas, to shoot them, to do all of that, to work with the team, to agree with the team. You know, like my team's amazing, but sometimes we had differing ideas on how something should be executed, and I would need to push back, and they would push back, and then obviously people, you know, product marketers would push back on certain aspects of it, and then you're involving a ton of other people into it. So yeah, I mean, it really is like that endurance. Like, how long can you endure it? And you know, creative people burn out because of that very reason. So if it happens enough where you're just getting like slapped down, it's not that great. It's not healthy. So I would always also recommend, like, for creative people to just take a break, take a pause. Sometimes creativity is not sitting in front of a screen. It's sitting and doing nothing. And that's where the best ideas come up with. And I always found, like, when I have a really amazing team and, like, I'm really passionate about something, they just kind of come to you. Like, everything floating in your everyday life, everything you experience, everything you touch can serve as a fodder for inspiration. And that's when I know that I'm, like, really in a good spot, when everything inspires me.
Yeah. Well, I know it's a cliche. I could talk to you all day about creativity. Speaking of not burning out and filling up your cup, I believe you have an event called Steaksgiving, which I'm going to do my best without looking at my notes here, which is where you serve a 14 course omakase. There it is.
You got it.
With A5 Wagyu.
Yeah.
Did I nail it?
Yeah, you nailed it.
That was a little tough for me.
Yeah,
I'll be honest,
that was
people. And so you host this party. So I have two questions for you. One is, what was the motivation behind it? And two, how do me and my wife get an invitation to the next
You're
one?
welcome anytime you're in San Diego the next time we're doing it. I went to Japan. Actually, when I was at Buzzfeed, we built a team in Japan. And I went there twice and I fell in love with the culture and the food. And it was just the most magical place I had ever been to. Like, I loved it. And then me and my husband went, and same thing. He fell in love with it. And then I was on a small little break. We were going to Japan, and we're like, all right, after we come back from Japan, let's like go all in. Like, let's make a specialty friend omakase where people can experience stuff that they've never had before. And like, also we can perfect our cooking skills. I find cooking to be really great and cathartic for, like, creativity. Just because there's, like, so much to it. You can change things. You can, like, small tweaks make something, like, amazing, add flavor. So I really love cooking. So to do that and to be able to, like, spend it with great friends and have them experience, like, both, like, Japan and then also that part of me and us was something really cool. So I definitely love cooking in my spare time.
Very cool. Very cool. Do you do anything else to kind of spark creativity, or maybe to actually, another way to think about it is almost to turn off creativity, right? Like in the ways of, like, I'm not intentionally trying to create. I'm actually trying to, like, rest my brain or take some downtime, because I know that fills my cup up. And then I think, at least for me, when I'm in that not trying mode, that's when a lot of times, like, the ideas come. Yeah. I
mean, I think, like, it's having conversations with people. I love just talking to people, smart people, because, like, like, I mean, we were just at Golden Hour, and just, like, talking to people is great. You can kind of, like, something sparks a thought, and then you're going off of each other, and that's where ideas come from. Taking walks, like, San Diego is very, like, healthy. There's a lot of really beautiful places that you can kind of go and think and and contemplate life and everything in the future. And but I mean, I often, when I'm in a good headspace and I'm feeling good about things, ideas come, because I'm so inspired. There's thousands of ideas constantly, whether you can execute on all of them, but they go into an idea drawer, and then, later you want to bring them out. But yeah, I think it's really important to, like, constantly refresh, and especially as a creative person and someone that needs to constantly think of new ideas. And I can see the other company, maybe I mentioned this to you, but you can tell that they're in, like, just, like, an incredible rhythm is two companies, actually. One, this guy that used to work for me at Buzzfeed, I love this story just because it's so cool. But I hired him as a creative, but he was working at a tobacco factory in North Carolina when I hired him, and he had no credentials. But I asked him, like, what does he do when he's not working at the tobacco factory? And he's creating these really unique, like, online games and stunts at night. And he'd spend hours just, like, programming and teaching himself to code to create these, like, really unique stunts. And I was like, okay, I want him, like, like that shows me that, like, there's something there. And he actually created, now it's super popular. It's called Mischief. They do. I
know what Mischief is.
Yeah,
that's
so
wild.
Yeah, so Gabe started Mischief, and he took and extrapolated some of the stuff that he was doing online at night to actual physical product drops. And you can just tell, that guy's on a different wavelength. The rhythm of how he's doing it now, collaborating with celebrities and different brands, and the creativity is, it's on another level, right? So
How would you describe Mischief? Because I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm always like, of all the companies you're going to say, I was just like, Mischief is so out there in the best way. Like the one I remember was, I think the Holy Water.
Oh, the Jesus shoes?
I will pay almost any amount if anyone listening to this can get me a pair. I'm not even going to wear them, but they're I think they're Air Force Ones.
Yeah, they're Air Force One. I think Drake has them, so I don't know. Hit Drake up.
I'm pretty close to Drake, so I should be fine. There has, I think, a crucifix, like a big metal crucifix on the front, and there's like holy water in some. I can't remember. In the shoe, I think.
It's holy water in the sole of the shoe, and then they did one with Lil Nas X, which was like blood, kind of for his release. But yeah, like they did that. They did my God, I bought a bag. It was really cool. It's like they took different types of high fashion bags and they sent them to different factories, and then they took that version and then they sent it to a different factory, and it's like this weird hybrid, like Frankenstein version of like a Hermes bag now. It's so cool. So the ideas that just come out of that company, like, I think they probably have a great time thinking of them, but it's hard to describe what it is. It's like the supreme of random great ideas, right?
Yeah. And that's like, I really was like, how do you describe it? Because it's like collabs come to mind.
Drops,
super limited availability.
And
it's off the wall shit. It's just wild things that even in my wildest dreams would never even gotten like that close.
They do also like they hide an actual Warhol within 30 fakes, and you can buy, each is $300, but there's one real one in there. So, and those sell out immediately. Like they really have the rhythm.
They did another similar thing, which was like, you can buy this box for like $100. And if you don't open it for a year, you like get what's inside. But if you open it, you don't get, like, there's just weird, like almost like the movie
rules,
Saw in a way of like there's weird rules and stuff. And I remember being like, I'm pretty sure I would open the box because I can't just put something away for a year. But yeah, there's always these like, the other part of it is almost like these like psychological triggers or these kind of like little games.
I think it's like, it's sort of, they're taking like the BuzzFeed approach to like the way that they're dropping physical products, right? A lot of the things, it's nostalgia, it's wonder, it's surprise, it's like all of these things that that resonate. So that's a cool example of someone who's like really, I think, like on the pulse of culture. I love that. And then the other company that is just crushing it is Liquid Death. They just, like you can tell, and Andy Pearson, who's their VP of creative, they have a really small internal team that, they're not spending that much money. They don't have an outsourced agency. They're doing it all internally.
Really? So I was at an event last week and someone brought them up. I mean, shock. We're talking about them all the time. But there was a funny question. He asked me, what do you think their creative team looks like? He doesn't know the answer, by the way. And I said, well, common consensus would say large, like we need to build out a big internal team. And then I went, but they don't do anything normally. So either they have a tiny team and they do it kind of what you're describing, that was my hunch, or they just have a really good agency. Yeah. And so you're saying they kind of followed like
it's all in-house.
The Melissa model, if I may say. I know you're going to roll your eyes at that. But that model of, they do also the SNL thing of like lots of ideas.
And look how fast they're able to come out. Like, every day they're coming out with something amazing. And it's because of the speed internally that they're able to do it. So I'm a big champion of building internal agencies. There, of course, there's a cost, but the benefit of being able to do that is, I think, far surpasses the investment.
It is cliche to say, damn, I could talk to you all day about this.
Fun topic.
I hope we get to have part 2. We will have a season 2 if you want to come back. Maybe we'll do it in San Diego.
Cool,
we're scoping San Diego for the next season.
Yeah, I think you can just like shoot anywhere and we could just do it on a rock.
There's like not many rules.
Yeah, there's no rules. I love that.
Thank you so much for joining. Seriously, thank you for sharing your expertise, your wisdom. I learned a lot. I'm sure the viewers and listeners did too.
Yeah, this was so much fun. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, if you're still listening, you must really crave growth. And I respect that. And you don't have to wait until next week's episode for more marketing advice. There are 3 ways I can help you scale your content right now. Every Saturday morning, I publish a newsletter where you'll get content tips and strategies for growing your career, brand, and business. Subscribe now to join thousands of readers. Just tap the link in the show notes. My ebook, Content That Converts, shows you how to confidently grow your reach and audience. This expansive digital playbook, packed with tips, techniques, and examples, reveals the exact strategies and step-by-step processes for converting attention into audience growth and sales. To buy your copy, hit the link in the show notes. you're seeing a pattern. And if you'd like to sponsor this show or partner with The Reader, email me at yo@thereader.co. Yes, that's yo@thereader.co. That's a wrap for now. And if you like the show, go ahead and give us that 5-star rating on Apple. It helps us grow.